时都可以看。好的，央视新闻的网友们，大家好，我们现在呢仍旧是在印度尼西亚巴厘岛的努拉莱伊国际机场。现在我是在这个国际机场的停机坪上，大家通过我的这个镜头也可以看到啊，前方是我们的同事，现在正在调整机位，准备拍摄。那么现在大家看看我们现在所在地的环境，现在是当地时间下午的2点41分。因为这个巴厘岛和中国呢都属于东八区，是没有时差的，所以我们现在所说的当地时间呢，也就是网友们看到的北京时间。今天巴厘岛的这个太阳还是比较大的，而且这个地方风也比较大，再加上这个飞机的轰鸣声，我其实站在这里都有点听不清楚我自己说话的声音。而像我们在机场现在的这个时间呢，如果没有遮挡的话，因为这个太阳非常大，甚至不太能看清楚手机屏幕上的内容。我给大家看一下右一侧，这边有一个机场的这个工作人员，从他的这个穿着上啊，大家就可以感觉到，这里面的穿着呢，还能感觉到这里是比较热的。今天的这个温度呢，差不多是在25度到33度左右。我们所在的这个巴厘岛呢，它是属于一个热带海岛型的气候，而且如果大家打开地图呢，就可以看到，巴厘岛离赤道是比较近的。像现在这样的一个温度，如果是户外工作的话，其实没过多久呢，汗水就会把衣服打湿。我们现在这个季节呢，正处于巴厘岛的一个雨季，空气还是相对来说比较湿润的。听当地的群众说呢，这季节洗的衣服都是比较难以晾干的。不过我相信这样的一个温暖的环境，对北方的网友们来说，应该已经是很久违了。让我们一起享受一段巴厘岛的阳光吧。 好的，央视新闻的网友们，大家好，我们现在仍旧是在印度尼西亚巴厘岛的努拉莱伊国际机场。那么现在在停机坪上，我们可以看到欢迎仪式稍后就将在这里举行。现在呢，相关的人群已经在停机坪上开始做准备了。站在这个准备队列最前面的是当地的礼兵。左边我看到机场的勤务人员正在这边合影。刚才是他们在负责这边的相关的秩序。我们看一下，礼兵穿着统一的这个制服。而在礼兵后面呢，大家可以看到，这些欢迎人群呢，穿着非常鲜明的、有巴厘岛当地特色的这样的一个服装。现在镜头前大家看到的呢，这些都是当地的民众。一会儿呢，他们将表演巴厘岛传统的欢迎舞。我从当地群众那边了解到呢，巴厘岛上的男女老少都非常喜欢音乐舞蹈，甚至可以用酷爱来形容。而巴厘岛大大小小的村子里呢，一般都有乐队和舞队，每逢宴会或者节假日啊，都会有舞蹈表演。这也是巴厘岛人的一种传统习俗。而大家一会儿要看到这个表演呢，是非常有风格和特色的。大家可以看一下，他们手里面都拿着这样的一个盘子，里面装着鲜花。大家看，人手一个。里面放的都是当地的一些这个鲜花。我之前了解到呢，一会儿要表演的这个舞蹈是非常具有风格和特色的。大家在稍后的报道中呢，可以仔细的观察一下。这种舞蹈呢，叫做巴厘岛传统的欢迎舞。到时候呢，传统的舞者呀，一般会保持直立或者半蹲的姿势。大家可以特别留意一下，这些舞者的头部、眼睛和手指会随着音乐自由的摆动。当然最特别的还要数我刚才跟大家说的这些舞者手里的这个小盘子。这些花到底是要干什么用的呢？当欢迎仪式正式开始的时候，舞者会用当地特有的舞蹈动作来撒花瓣。这个场面呢，可以说是非常喜庆和非常壮观的，可以说非常的活灵活现。而在这些舞者的后面呢，这个
sufficient. And road connectivity is very much limited because Indonesia is composed of thousands, if not tens of thousands of islands. Each one is separated from each other. Therefore, I think from the Chinese perspective, if we can work with the people in Indonesia to build up railway connection of all kinds, and this one is from Jakarta to Bandung, but it may be extended both to the west or to the east, so that eventually more and more islands in Indonesia can be connected. And this will be a sure way of improving not only transportation, but flow of people, goods, services, and ideas. And then you have actually a contraction of time and space. And then whatever product you are making, whatever agricultural produce you are making, can actually command a better price. So you will be in a better position to make more money, to generate more value for the goods and services that you can push to the end market. And then further, I would say, as Professor Liu correctly pointed out, the real estate, for example, all the other services, industries along the railway will be very much brought up. Absolutely. So one railway is not just a railway, it is an emancipating factor for so many other things. And in China, for example, we have this experience. Sometimes local authorities compete with each other hectically in order to have the railway line going through their city rather than the neighboring city.
To see it as a huge opportunity.
Absolutely. This is a liberating force, basically.
Right, and so what about the ASEAN context, China's cooperation with ASEAN members, both as a dialogue partner and also all as members of signatories to the RCEP?
Absolutely. I think ASEAN and China have a free trade agreement, and we are in the process of further upgrading that free trade agreement to cover more things and to make it more applicable to the changing circumstances both in ASEAN and in China. And also ASEAN as a whole, composed of 10 countries, also face a lack of high quality connectivities. For example, from China's Yunnan province, we want to help with all these countries to build up connectivity through Myanmar, through Laos, through Vietnam, all the way down to Thailand, Cambodia, and then converging in Malaysia, going further down to Singapore, and then crossing to Indonesia, and then from east to west throughout the land of Indonesia, they can be connected. And then we are also working with the Philippines, for example, to help them to build up infrastructure projects, power stations of all kinds, LNG terminals, you name it, so that eventually the 10 ASEAN countries will be connected better. And then the barriers, the internal barriers, geological, geographical barriers or political barriers can be further brought down. So eventually it will be a leveling off process so that people will be more integrated and interconnected, not only with China, but also with other big countries like Japan, Republic of Korea, and many other countries in our part of the world, and countries beyond the ocean, in the United States or Canada or Australia. So I think what China is really promoting is not only good for China, but equally, if not more important for the ASEAN countries, but the benefit eventually will spill over.
Yes, you were saying that China's cooperation with Indonesia and with neighboring countries and even with the region are actually, would you say that's mutually beneficial?
Not only mutually beneficial, eventually the rest of the world will also benefit from such improved, enhanced connectivity, as well as peace and stability, for example, because peace and stability, cohesiveness and collective actions to promote growth will generate more opportunities, better jobs, for example, higher income, and they uplift themselves, and the rest of the world will be more interested in working with ASEAN as a whole.
Yes, yes, Professor Liu.
We should also be reminded of some of the challenges over there, in spite of the beautiful pictures painted by Victor Gao, because this area has been very diverse in terms of culture, belief, and life values. So therefore, how we can really build better understanding before full trust can be restored. For example, I was teaching international class for the senior leaders from ASEAN, and some say, okay, we're not really in a rush as the Chinese people, so therefore you do not really sell the fast trains with us. We just need a good quality, stable movement, and that's it. So, and also there are NGOs that are very strong, that are many Chinese companies, they are not really very familiar, so that can encounter some of the challenges. The third one is that U.S. And some of the Western European countries are still eyeing on this region, and U.S. produces something like the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, although it's really short of substance, and some of these countries are still shopping for the best gain, and between them. So I think now for us is there how we can really build understanding.
Right, sorry to stop you there. We've just got latest from Bali. Chinese President Xi Jinping and First Lady Peng Liyuan have arrived in Bali, Indonesia. This is the footage from Bali International Airport. Chinese President Xi Jinping, First Lady Madame Peng Liyuan have arrived in Indonesia. Chinese President Xi Jinping will attend this year's G20 summit in Bali. You're watching footage from Bali Island in Indonesia, the venue for this year's G20 summit. So, gentlemen, Chinese President Xi Jinping and First Lady Madame Peng Liyuan have arrived in Indonesia. Let's talk a little bit more about the China initiative, China proposal to deal with the current world crisis. Let's talk about health architecture. So, of course, we have to start with fighting against the COVID pandemic. What do you make of China's contribution to the global effort so far, Professor?
Well, the world is not really at the right type of order on two ways. One is that it's not really built on a rational basis anymore. And now China is really trying to bring rationality to the reconsideration of economic and political order around the world. And then China is there using its own might to, number one, to contribute to global growth. And two, in terms of the health, we can see that China is trying to manage, almost 1/5 of the population to be safe and secure before we can really have full opening. And this is something that Chinese leaders understand as a responsible manner. And then China is there to reduce and even eliminate a number of deaths for those poorest countries. And so that they are able to have the access to the basic medicine and basic food. And then, even though China suffered a great deal from the pandemic, we continue to send out the medical teams, the medical equipment to many parts of the world, and so that we are there to show our responsibility and our commitment to the shared future of mankind. And then I think China is also working with many other global teams as how we can really discover the most safe and effective vaccines that can address this. But right now, pandemic, the COVID is one, but the entire human civilization moves along in fight against all possible mischiefs from the nature. So therefore, this type of the pandemic fund that is set up during the G20 is something that China, I think, definitely is going to commit quite a share to it. So it is something that signifies that we are able to follow a sort of inclusiveness among these countries, and China is definitely a positive element in that regard.
Indeed. What about energy transition, Professor Gao? What would you say are the China initiative, China action in this regard? We know China has been undergoing a huge green transformation for its energy industry and even energy consumption domestically. But what about the global vision of China's Going Green campaign, if you will?
Absolutely. China used to depend on coal as the largest contributor to its energy mix, up to about 75%, if not even higher. Now it's significantly brought down to below 60%. And our goal is to further reduce it to below 50 and further cutting the percentage in China's energy mix. Now, on the other hand, China is already the largest and the leading country in terms of solar power, wind power of all kinds, not only in terms of generating power for China, but also in terms of the manufacturing of all the equipments, all the gears, for example, for the China market, but also for exporting markets. And I think China will continue to make huge investments in this regard so that all the other countries can benefit from the solar power, wind power, and other new and renewable sources of energy. Now, the other thing I think very important is that China is really investing huge amount in research and development of other revolutionary breakthroughs in new energy. And I think if eventually they can be brought to fruition, they may have revolutionary impact on the energy security for mankind as a whole. And I do hope China can make greater strides in this regard, and I hope other countries can cooperate with China very significantly. Now, on the other hand, I would say China has a very fragile situation because our dependence on imported oil is almost 75%, if not higher. Our dependence on imported natural gas is more than 40% already, and both are on the rise. So China is living, in a sense, in a house of glass. No, we do not want to see anyone throwing a wedge into energy security, not only of China, but of any other country. And in order to really assure energy security for the whole world, mankind need to cooperate, not only in terms of science and technology, major breakthroughs, for example, new ways of developing new and renewable energies, and also in how to make sure that fossil fuels like coal and crude oil, etc., can be utilized in a better way, and the emissions can be better controlled so that eventually their negative impact on environment can be more controlled. So I think it will be much better if developed countries and developing countries can really cooperate and figure out a better way to share information, share technology, share new ways of doing things, and with the same and common goal of reducing emission and promoting better use of energy. I hope this will exactly be the thing that the G20 leaders need to discuss in Bali for this new framework of energy for mankind.
Right, what about the digital transformation, Professor Liu? What would you say is the China experience so far? Because we know the country has the world's largest online population, just over 1 billion people. Only that's the number in China. And also the size of its digital economy has reached 45.5 trillion yuan by last year. So what's the experience for China in developing this particular regard?
Well, if you look at the innovation path across the globe, it is really the home demand that purports the strong innovation power. For the U.S. To be the home for many inventions, it is really the buying power of the U.S. people. And now, for the e-commerce, China is really there to assemble the largest buying power, and that is there to add further fuel for the locomotive of e-commerce. And then with e-commerce, we do see the online payment and the digital type of currency that is available. And then the Chinese government is also a quick learner, and they also deal with the digital RMB on an official basis. So this is really an acceleration pace for China to move into the digital world. And now, entertainment, all types of promotion are really online. It seems that people are really living in a metaverse that is already there. But on the other hand, we also need to work more closely with the rest of the world. One is that how we can really have an open but also secure the internet space that can be jointly shared by all countries at different development stage.
香港人知呢樣嘢要做嘅，講真，環保浪費，我覺得香港人可以被改變。
如果我哋嗰個嘅